So hey y'all, it's Will Johnson with William T.J. Realty, bringing you the lowdown on life in Houston, Texas. So today we're talking about something a little bit different. We're talking about reasons why you may not want to consider moving to Houston. Please consider all these reasons before you make the move. Let's get right into it. So number one, weather woes. So let's talk about the weather. So people, Houston, Texas has some wild weather. Sometimes it's really hot, sometimes it's really cold, depending on the season you're in and depending on the day. Now in general, this is a hot or warm climate, but a lot of times it gets cold whenever there's a cold front that comes down. So let's talk about this Houston heat. Houston is not just hot, it's a place that's humid, so a lot of people from Arizona or some places that are used to more dry heat may not be used to the humidity out here. So with this Houston heat, you may be able to fry egg on a sidewalk, and the Houston humidity may make you feel like a steamed vegetable. And don't forget about hurricane season. That's enough to scare anybody, right? A lot of the area of Houston also will suffer flooding. So if you're not used to this type of thing, you may want to consider this before moving here. Although most of the area of Houston does not flood and is not a flood zone, any place can be prone to flooding depending on what happens. Like in Hurricane Harvey, when the hurricane came and it just sat for a while, in places that normally wouldn't flood did flood. In this instance now are considered flood zones. Although most places still didn't flood, this is something that you really want to consider before moving here. I have a neighbor who stayed here for about 5 years, and now he's packing up and leaving because he came here really wanting to plant gardens and things of that nature, but he wasn't used to the extreme heat and the extreme cold coming from a place on the east side of the United States, and he said that this place in Southeast Texas is not fit for mankind. So he's gonna pack up and leave because the only thing he had to worry about there was having enough firewood and having enough hay for his animals. So this is something you guys definitely want to consider before moving to Houston. Number two, traffic troubles. So a lot of you aren't used to traffic like this. Houston is huge. This city spreads out more than Aunt Sally's quilt, and that means a lot of driving. Traffic jams here can turn quickly into a long haul. So if you ain't used to sitting in your car in traffic jams, Houston's traffic just might drive you nuts. So when I first come here and I experienced my first traffic jam, I was amazed by all the traffic that was going on in the area. I had other people from Mississippi, where I'm from, tell me that they wouldn't move to Houston because they had experienced the traffic. Once you stay here for a while, you get used to it, but if you're not used to being in traffic for a long time, it's something you might want to get used to. You learn soon that traffic jams are like around 9 a.m. in the morning and also around 4 and 5 p.m. In the evening. So if you're caught in Houston traffic around that time, you might be in a lot of traffic jams. Anytime before that or after that or in between, usually the traffic can flow fairly decent unless there's a car wreck or something, and there always is a car wreck or something going on in the big city. So next we have urban sprawl. Harris County, which is the biggest county in Texas, and this county is really big, stretching far beyond Houston all the way to Baytown and over there into the Katy area. So this is a really big county, and Houston roads are really long. It might take you an hour to get on one part of Houston to another part. I remember being on the west side of Houston in the Katy area. Man, it takes like so long to get from the Cypress area to the Sharon and Richmond area down on the bottom of Katy. You think because everything right there on the west that you would get there soon, but it turns out it doesn't happen that way. It takes almost an hour to get from that area down to below Katy because Houston is just so big. So a lot of things are spread out. If you guys are not used to that, not used to the driving, this may be something you want to reconsider. So what does this mean for you? That groceries, work, friends, all these things may be spread hours apart. So this sprawl might make it tough for you having a close-knit community, and it can rack up on them gas prices very soon. So I recommend that you guys pick an area where you're gonna want to stay and have your community and environment right there in that area. But if you're trying to do things all over the city of Houston, you might be in traffic for a while. Next, bugs and allergies. Now let's talk about bugs and allergies. So Houston's weather is like a vacation for most bugs. I'm talking mosquitoes, fire ants, roaches, you name it. These bugs love the Houston weather and the Houston climate. And if you have high allergies, a high pollen count here will have you sneezing up a storm. There's a certain church member that I have. He's always has something going on with his allergies, and a lot of times it looks like he's having a tough time. And he said where he's from, he's not used to dealing with this. So he came down here since he has high allergies. He's always stuffy on the nose. So this is something you might want to consider before moving to Southeast Texas. And lastly, them taxes. Houston has some really high property taxes. So Houston might not have state income tax. That's what attracts a lot of people to the state of Texas. But them property taxes can put a big old bite in your wallet. So watch those property taxes. So that's something to think about also when you're figuring out your budget. A lot of people have the dream to move to Texas, buy a house because it's a lot cheaper here than a lot of the other big major cities. But one thing you do have to consider is a property tax. As the old saying goes, the only two things sure in life is death and taxes. So a lot of states have property taxes. Let's say you buy a house, you might have to pay $3,000 a year at that point on for your property taxes for a pretty decent house. But in Houston, that $3,000 might turn to $8,000 a year that you'll have to pay. I went to a really nice subdivision. These houses were probably like in the 800,000 range, you know, somewhere in there, in the $500,000 range, and the property taxes there were expensive. It also depends on where you go, because Harris County does have a lot of high property taxes, but other counties in Texas have lower property taxes. But in this particular place, because it was a really high-end place, nevertheless, it had it was about $13,000 in property taxes on a house that's about $600,000. So that's like over $1,000 a month if you divide it by 12 that you'll still have to pay after you own the house outright in property taxes. So if you do plan on moving to Houston, just watch out where you go and see if the property taxes are going to be affordable for you or not. So there you have it, some reasons why Houston, Texas might not be the place for everyone. So every place has its good and its bad, and it's very important to think it through before making the move. So if you're still planning on moving to Houston, Texas, and you have your heart set on it, and you have any questions about real estate, just give me a holler. I'm here to help you make an informed and smart choice. Remember to like, comment, subscribe below to keep up with my content and what's going on. Until then, I will see you guys in the next video.